Everyone, please stand for a word of prayer. All those who have an unspoken prayer request, let it be shown by the raising of your hands. And let us go before the throne of grace. Precious Father, we just thank you for waking us up this morning, starting us on our way. And as a songwriter says, I was glad when they said, let us go into the house of the Lord. Lord, we just thank you right now for bringing us into your presence one more time, for assembling us together. Holy Spirit, thou art welcome in this place. We're asking that you come by here in a mighty way. Lord, bless the service, bless the speaker. Let us feel your spirit in us right now in Jesus' name. Oh, Lord, let us not leave the way that we came in. And we just pray right now for, even for the afternoon service, that you may bless. But most importantly, we're praying and crying out that some soul may cry out and say, what must I do to be saved? Lord, you see all the hands that were outstretched, all those in the need of prayer. We're asking that you bless in the name of Jesus, like only you can. Touch the hearts, touch the minds, touch the souls right now. Breathe your spirit on us, breath of life, one more time. Father, we just thank you for everything you've done for us. We pray for our brethren on foreign field. I ask that you comfort them and strengthen them this hour. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now, you can be seated. This morning it is, definitely a pleasure, a privilege, and a treat. For the past few months we've had some pillars in our church, and some people that exemplify the grace of God. And this morning, it is definitely and indeed a pleasure to hear from Brother Maurice Massey, his heartfelt testimony as he chronicles the journey of God's grace through his life. Let us receive him at this time.
Praise the Lord, saints. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let me get some things straight. I'm not Sister Massey. I'm not replacing Sister Massey doing a Sunday school. There's only one Sunday, Joan. So, and let me give a disclaimer. There might be some things that you might find to be graphic in nature, and might sound controversial, and there might be some remarks that you might find that you might think that might be disparaging to Bridget Massey, but they aren't. They are for the reasons of, as the reasons of personal testimony, and for some, I'll put a little bit of health lessons in there. So Bridget wouldn't mind if she was here and she could testify herself. She wouldn't mind some of the things that I'm saying, and don't be concerned. Don't be concerned about some of the things that you might hear, because they might sound disparaging, but they aren't. So I'm going to have to do things chronologically. I have to do things chronologically so that I can remember, because most of you all remember, I was gone for a long time as far as Troy was concerned. I was taking care of Bridget. I think the last time we were here in like mid-April. And I don't think I didn't get back here until June 20, got back in Troy about June 26th or June 25th, one of those days. So it was, so at least 2 months, people didn't see me. You didn't see Bridget or myself, and I was her caretaker. So during that period of time, I know you all heard bits and pieces, and Elder Massey, during her homegoing, he touched on bits and pieces, and I know out of the respect of a lot of people have questions, and you didn't want to ask the questions because of out of respect of the situation and what happened as far as Bridget's her homegoing. So I respect that, but you all have questions, I got answers. So I don't have all the answers. Obviously, God has some answers that I can't answer, but I'm going to fill in the holes, as far as the situation that happened with Bridget. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to go chronologically. So, and you're going to hear some things that might not make sense, but there's going to be a rhyme and reason why I'm telling you this, and at the end, we'll be able to put it all together. So, this all started back in late February. So, it was late February, and, Bridget's usually in her classroom. So, I do the night watch. And so I get up a little later. I get up around 11, 12. So I go over to Bridget's classroom. She's not there. I go over there, mess with the kids, get reports on Bible Man. And the kids love to give me reports on Bible Man. I talk a hole in Bridget's head. And so Bridget's not over there. I think Pig had her class at the time. So so it was no big thing. And I said, where's Bridget at? Pig said she didn't know. So I said, so I called Bridget. Bridget didn't answer her phone, but that's not unusual because Bridget has a problem answering that phone. She can use it, but she had a little problem. Her and Pig had problems with answering the phone, so it's no big thing. So I called her again. 3 o'clock rolls around. Bridget, usually she'll at least call you back in about an hour or so. So I what do you call it? I wasn't really concerned, but I said, wow. I'm asking Pig. I said, have you heard from Bridget? She said, no, I didn't. She just told me to, take her class for a minute. And she had an appointment or something. So then I get a text that I'm at the dentist. So, okay. So she said she's at the dentist and she'll be back. So she came back and so I said, oh, you had a dentist appointment? Yeah, I had a dentist appointment. So that was that. And so it doesn't sound like it's relevant, but this is relevant to what I'm, as we go on, you'll see. So there's no big thing. Bridget's always went to the dentist. Her and Red, they live at the dentist, constantly getting their teeth cleaned. So that was no big thing, so I didn't think anything of it. And so she acted normal, no big thing. But I did notice 2 months later, after she came from the dentist, and these are things you look back in retrospect, but at the time, I did notice that she started making her own deodorant concoction, homemade deodorant concoction. Now, if you know Bridget is not into alternative health. She believes in alternative health. She knows, I dabbled into it and I've done research and, the Lord's blessed me to, research and help me rid myself of diabetes and hypertension, high blood pressure. So she's always believed it, and she's been a proponent for it, but she would never practice it herself. Bridget, over the years, I would say I've probably bought $1,000 worth of supplements for Bridget, and she'll use it for a couple days. I think I got her to use one supplement for 2 weeks, and then that was it. She'll just let you go to waste. So I kind of gave up as far as trying to get Bridget into alternative health. She just wasn't into it. She believed it, and she was for it, but she wasn't going to practice it herself. She was going to do her. So I was at pause for a second because I saw her and she had her baking soda and she had some coconut oil and she had her little concoction and I saw her and she was mixing up something. I said, Bridget, what's that? Oh, I'm making some deodorant. I said, oh, okay. So I was going to mess with her. I said, oh, you're into alternative health, but I let it alone because I said, oh, this is little baby steps. Okay, she's starting to get into alternative health. Once, I was excited. So I said, okay. So I watched her and she started, out of clear blue sky. It was about 2 months after her doctor's visit. I looked in the garbage and she had thrown out all of her deodorant, her regular, deodorant that contains the aluminum. So she had gotten rid of it and had thrown it away, and she was using her own concoctions. So, I didn't think anything of it, but I was excited. So, okay, it's a step forward. And so that's one little sign. That was one sign right there. But I didn't see it at the time, but, looking back in retrospect, that was one sign. So in June, Bridget, her and I, we went to go trade in our vehicle and to get what is it? The Jeep? Is the Jeep that you have, Mom? Yes, the Explorer. And we're at Jack Burns. So mind you, this is probably her with the red hot, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since we've been married, we've probably had about 5 or 6 cars, 5 of them brand new, and 6 was a used vehicle. And so whenever we drive off the lot, Bridget she always has to be the first one to be behind that wheel. She always makes me be a passenger. So we sign the papers and whatever, and so she hands me the keys. So I'm confused. I said, you're letting me drive? I was shocked. I said, almost 30 years of marriage, this is going to be the first time I drive a car off a lot? I said, so I didn't think any, I now said, Bridget, are you serious? I said, I really driving? No, yeah, you take it, you drive. I said, I don't feel like driving. I said, oh, okay. So sign number 2. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I thought something for a second, but okay. I drove it off the lot. And that was the first time in almost 30 years of marriage that I drove a car off the lot. And one used car, I drove it off the parking lot. I mean, she's always driven. She wants to be the first one, so it's no big thing. So fast forwarding a little bit, for maybe a month later, I was consulting Pig in the classroom about Selah's, her daughter's, Selah's seizures that she was having. And so I did a little research in there, and I was talking to Pig about building up her immune system. So I was, I basically was, telling her of a supplement that would help her build her immune system. So Bridget was sitting over there doing something in her classroom. And so I talk alternative medicine, to people. I consult people all the time on the phone and in person. And Bridget, she'll be around, but she never really paid it too much attention. So this time, after, she interjects herself into our conversation about the supplement that I was talking about, building up Selah's immune system to, knock out those seizures. And so she started asking questions about that. I was confused. I said, Bridget never asks questions about supplements, ever. I mean, she doesn't care about supplements. And all the thousands of dollars worth of supplements that she's wasted and I had to throw out. So she's asking, so I'm got a little excited that she's, she's a little interested in asking questions about supplements. So I gave her a little information about supplements and what it can do and things like that. So the next thing I know, she was asking me where to buy it from. I said, okay. So I tell her where to buy it. Next thing I know, FedEx is coming with a package for Bridget. And so I said, I'm the mailman up there at Northfield, so I bring her the mail. I see a little package there, so I went to check her package out. What are you looking at? I said, what are you waiting for? I said, I'm waiting for you to open up the package. I went to see because it felt like supplements. I was a little confused. And so I'm just waiting around. She doesn't want to open it up. I said, well, let me open this up for you. She didn't want to open it up. So anyway, she opens it up, and I end up seeing transfer factor. I said, Bridget, what are you doing with this? Oh, I'm just trying to better my health, and I just want to have a healthy immune system. I said, huh? I was confused. I said, all these years I've been trying to get this girl into alternative health. All of a sudden she's concerned about building up her immune system. So, it startled me for a second. I was excited. I said, so you're into alternative health? I started messing with her, and then I had to back off because I didn't want to scare her off. I had to back off and start teasing her, so because she was going in a good direction. I was excited. I said, wow, Bridget's into alternative health now. And she was taking it religiously. Like the supplements that I would get her before, I would have to remind her to take it and push her to take it. And it's like, Bridget, listen, this is supposed to last you 2 weeks. You've had this thing for 3 months, so I would really try to push her to take supplements. This time she was taking it like clockwork, just like taking it. I said, wow. So that was another little sign. So then Pig, my little sister Pig and I, we were doing something called intermittent fasting. We were messing around and trying to get a little healthier. And so we were doing some intermittent fasting. And so Bridget overhears us, and she asked Pig what she was doing. And so then Pig and I were talking, and she says, yeah. She said, Bridget's hanging in there. I said, what do you mean Bridget's hanging in there? She said, yeah, she's on her 3rd day. I said, her 3rd day doing what? She said, her third day of water fasting. I said, huh? So I go to ask Bridget. I said, Bridget, you're water fasting? And she says, yeah. And she said, I don't have to report to you about anything. So I had to back off. So she's taking some steps. She's taking steps. She's making her homemade alternative deodorant. She's boosting up her immune system. Now she's doing intermittent fasting. And not only that, she's doing water fasting. And all the times I try to get Bridget to fast with me, now she would fast with the church did their fast, but according to Bridget, a fast for her was Wednesday until 5 o'clock, and then that's her fast right over there. And I used to get on Bridget. I said, Bridget, that's not a real fast. I said, they do that for people that are on medication and people that have health problems, things like that. Come on now, you can do a real fast. But she was doing a water fast. So she saw me reading a book. I was reading a book by Dr. Furman, and it's about fasting. And the next thing I know, she's looking at it and things like that. She gets something in the mail, and it's a book. So I'm curious. She has Dr. Furman's fasting book. So I said, Bridget, so you're really into this alternative health thing? Yeah, I'm just trying to get healthy. Yeah, it's time, with the health. I just want to be healthy. And I'm really excited. I said, wow. I said, after all these years, Bridget's into alternative health. So, I didn't see any signs of anything. I was just excited. It was just like, all of a sudden, you got the deodorant, you got the boosting of the immune system, you got her fasting, not only juice fasting, but she went to water fasting. Then she got Dr. Furman's fasting book, and not only did she do a fast, so I said, let's do a competition. So she went to do a competition. We went to see who's going to fast longer, water fast in the summer. So I think Pig was with us. Pig lasted 24 hours. She did pretty good. Pig lasted 24 hours. I lasted 8 days, and I got sick. And Bridget went on for 14 days that first time. So she wore me and Pig out. So I was impressed. I said, she's doing alternative health. She's fasting. I couldn't get her to fast before. Now she's doing a water fast for 14 straight days. And so I was excited. And I think me and Pig were talking about it. Like, yeah, so Bridget's starting to do this alternative thing. And I said, yeah, and she's talking about transfer factor and things like that. So, so that goes on. And now we had a hot summer. Last summer I think it was hotter than this summer. And, well, I don't know, but it was hot during the time. I noticed that Bridget was wearing long sleeves for some reason. And I would ask Bridget, I said, why are you wearing these long sleeves? I couldn't understand it. She was wearing long sleeves, and she was wearing a glove on her left hand. And so all this is, be patient, all this is going to make sense in the end when I tie it all together. But she was wearing a glove on her left hand. And it was like 80, 90 degrees, and I'm trying to fast. I said, Bridget, what are you doing? She wouldn't answer. She thinks, I guess she thought I was teasing her or something. I said, Bridget, what are you doing? It's 85 degrees. What are you doing with a glove on? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sister Holmes noticed it. She didn't say anything, but she did notice that it was kind of odd that in the middle of summer, Bridget was wearing long sleeves and she was wearing a glove on her left hand. So I'd asked her, and she never gave me any answers. So we fast forward to the fall time. So Bridget and I, we don't go on vacations. We really, if you can't really call it a vacation if you go to, if you're supervising kids on basketball trips, that's not a vacation. Some people get confused and think, oh, they went this place, they went to Vegas, and they went that place. That's not a vacation. When you got 15, 20 kids that you're supervising, that's not a vacation. You might be able to sneak off to a restaurant, to a buffet here and there, but that's not really a vacation. So I asked my mom, I was figuring some things out, and I was plotting and planning with Minister Tristan. And so we were lining things up. Let's stay in Vegas let's see if we can stay in Vegas for a week after the kids finish their tournament. Because that was the thing, and we go to Vegas. Because, you really don't have too much time because you're going back and forth to the hotels. You're supervising the kids, keeping them in the rooms. feeding them and things like that. So I asked my mom, and my mom said, "Oh, that's not a problem." That's not a problem. She said, "Okay, just make sure you set it up and how long are you going to be gone?" I said, "We want to stay for a week." So my mom said, "No problem." So I told Bridget, and she was excited, and so we're excited to go to Vegas. So we were already doing this fasting thing and competing on this intermittent fasting and water fasting, so you can fast the longest and things like that. And so I had gotten her a Fitbit, which she would barely use. But I said, "Bridget, you got to put this Fitbit in use." So Fitbit is a pedometer. It keeps track of your, how many steps you take, how many miles you walk, how many hills you'll climb, and how many calories you burn. And I said, so when we go to Vegas, I said, we're going to be walking that strip. Because all the times, I've been going to Vegas since 95, and I really never had the opportunity to really have a vacation in Vegas and really walk around, because I was always tied down with the kids. I was either coaching or supervising or doing both. So this is going to be like the first time I really got to explore Vegas. So, I said, "Bridget, we're going to walk that strip and we're going to get our numbers in. We're going to do 5 miles, 6 miles a day, and this, that." And so she said, yeah, we're going to do it. She was all, yeah, hurrah. She was all pumped up and this and that. We're all pumped up. So as we get closer and closer, we got to about November. I said, "Bridget, you ready for Vegas?" "I don't know about that. I'm going to Vegas, but I don't know about walking." Or I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You were talking about you're going to be walking the strip." "I got to wait and see." I said, "Bridget, all summer long you've been telling me that you've been ready to go to Vegas and we're gonna get our walks in and this and that." I don't know. I got to see. I got to see how I feel." I said, "What are you talking about? You got to see how you feel." "I got to see how I feel." So I was a little confused about that. I didn't understand that. And then that was one sign. Another sign. Bridget and I guess when we do our old people's thing, that's what my sisters call it, when we go out on Saturdays and we do our old people's thing, going from store to store, Bridget had this new thing where, if it was raining, if it's snowing or things like that, I would always drop in front of the store. But what we would like to do is I would always park at the end of the parking lot so we can walk. So like if it's Sam's, Walmart's, I'll park at the end so that we can get our numbers. And that's what we called it, just getting our numbers in. So all of a sudden, she didn't want to get her numbers. Dropped me off in front of the store. I said, "Well, hold, Bridget, you got to get your numbers. I don't care about numbers. Just drop me off in front." And I said, "Well, what about your numbers?" "I don't care about them." I said, "Well, I'm up to 3 miles now already." I said, "I'm beating you." "I don't care." So I started doing something unusual. I was dropping her off in front of the stores. Like literally, I had to go to the front of the door, and it would be sunny. There was nothing wrong outside, and she wanted me to drop her off up in front of the store. So that was weird. And I didn't think anything of it. I said, well, maybe she's having a lazy day, but it kept on going. So I didn't understand why she was doing that all of a sudden. So as you know, Bridget was in the control room. She's been in the control room for about 20 years, and that's where I sat for God knows how long. But anyways, even when my father was long-winded, everyone knows that my father could be long-winded. And during those prophecy conferences and up here, and he said, "I'm out here in 10 minutes." 10 minutes to him is like 45 minutes. So we know how that goes. But this is the honest to God, goodness truth. I have never, ever seen Bridget struggle in church. I think I saw her once during a prophecy conference. I think my father he got long-winded. He did them like almost close to a 3-hour session some years back when Pastor Myers was alive. And he was extremely long-winded. I think she could have struggled during that time. But that's the only time I had ever seen her struggle. She never struggles, like ever. She's like wide awake all the time. Now Satan, he'll creep in a little bit and say to act up with me a little bit. And I would struggle here and there, but I had never seen Bridget struggle. When I say I had never seen her struggle, so out of the clear blue sky, I think it was probably October, I saw Bridget struggling in church. She was like really struggling. like to stay up. I said, Bridget, you need you a 5-hour energy? I was messing with her. I said, what's going on over there? You all right over there? Leave me alone. And you got your nerve. So I'm watching this, and so I said, well, maybe she didn't get any sleep. But this kept on happening every service. Like she was struggling, like she was extremely fatigued in that control room. And I'm watching this, and I'm still not putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm watching it, and I'm always getting her. Actually, I think I bought a 5-hour energy and tried to give it to her. And she would get burnt up. I mean, get that thing out of here. You use it. You need it. I don't need it. But she was struggling though, and she was like, actually, she conked out and did a little like a little snore one time and scared to woke herself up. But this is all that's going over there. But mind you, she had never ever did this. I mean, ever. I never seen her do this. Almost 30 years of marriage, I have never seen her struggle in church before. It was like a new thing. So let us fast forward to Vegas. So we get to Vegas, and so I had been talking about it, so I'm hoping that she's going to change her mind once we get to Vegas, and we're going to walk the strip together, get some exercise, burn some calories off so that we can knock ourselves dead at the buffet at night. So I said, Bridget, let's go ahead and do it. And I was trying to get her in red. I think I got red a couple of times, but I couldn't get Bridget. And Bridget was the type, ever since we've been married, she needs 4 hours of sleep. That's it. 3.5, 4 hours of sleep and she's good to go. Like she's like clockwork, whether it's a vacation or whatever, she's not in the bed any longer than like 7 o'clock. She has to get up and do something. So we get to Vegas, and I'm nocturnal because of my schedule and doing night watch and things like that. So I've been like that for years. So I don't go to bed until 4, sometimes 5 in the morning. So that's, it's normal. So I'll sleep a little later. But I was getting up in Vegas, and I was looking to turn over, and I'm seeing Bridget still in the bed with me. And I said, wow, that's the first time I noticed that. And first time I said, well, maybe it's because of the 3-hour difference and stuff like that. But we've been to Vegas many times before, and she's never did that before. So we were in Vegas for 2 weeks? And the whole time we were in Vegas, Bridget was like in bed. I mean, she was in bed until like 12, sometimes 1, and I said, Bridget, what are you doing? Because I was confused about this. I'd never seen her lay in the bed like that. Even if there's nothing to do, she's going to get up. Her thing is to get up and leave the hotel and run in the lobby and get coffee, or, she'll sometimes go out in the strip. She was laying right there. Sometimes I was getting up before Bridget. I was confused about that. And nothing to be alarmed about. I was confused because I had never seen her do that. Now, all the times we've been to Vegas, California, any other place, I have never seen her just, lay in the bed. And then when we would come back from basketball games, she would go and take naps. Bridget doesn't take naps. She was getting her naps in. And I was confused about that, about those naps. And so I didn't notice anything as far as any extra fatigue. I do remember one time we were going to Caesar's Palace, and we wanted to get tickets for the Bechamel buffet. And so anyone that's been to Vegas, there's different entrances you can go into these hotels. So as far as the traffic is concerned, it's crazy with the traffic. So I found a spot where they were valeting at, and it happened to be a little further from the buffet than she wanted to walk. So we got in there, and she got on me because you had to walk a distance. You probably had to walk like a half a mile to get over to the area where you would get the tickets for the buffet to check that out. And she was burnt up with me. Why did you have to park over there like this and that? And I'm like, Bridget's never had any problems with like walking through the hotels. She was hot. She was burnt up, chewed me out. This doesn't make any sense. We have to walk all the way through. I said, Bridget, it's not. We always do that. I did this last year, and you didn't say anything. Yeah, this is too much walking or anything. But I didn't notice anything as far as any distress or anything. But she was lagging behind. I do know that. Now that I think about it, she was lagging behind. It was Newbie, Red, myself, and Bridget. She was doing some lagging behind. But as far as her breathing's concerned or respiratory is concerned, factors are concerned, I didn't notice anything. So, well, let me rewind before we got to Vegas. Before we got to Vegas, I believe it could have been in October or November. My mom might know this. It was on a Sunday. And so, as after church, and usually I like to take off because I will go, I'll change my clothes, grab my bags, and we're on our way back to Northfield. So I said, Bridget, let's go. I'm about to leave you. No, we have to go over to Mom's and them's house. I said, for what? I said, we got to get on a road. We got to get back to Northfield. No, it's important. We got to go over there. So we go over there to the house, and we're lingering around, and then all of a sudden she says, okay, Dad, I need you to pray for me. And he said, for what? So I didn't even know we were going over there. We were going over there for her to get prayed for. She says, oh, I have a little lump in my chest. And when was that? October, November, Mom? Okay, November. So it's like right before we went to Vegas. I have a little lump in my chest. I said, what? I said, you got a lump in your chest? So it was just casual. It's like, it's no big thing. It's just a little small lump or whatever. So I wasn't too alarmed about it because about 25 years ago, Bridget had a lump in her left breast, which, before we were into alternative health, she ended up getting a biopsy, and it was a benign tumor, and it ended up disappearing. So, because I remember back then, I didn't know anything about breast cancer. I knew nothing about anything. And my mom was all concerned. I think at the time, we were being insured by an insurance company. It's called CHP. And so my mom was all alarmed. Keep your Bridget has a lump in her breast, and you need to pray for her and such and such and such. And she's getting a biopsy. I didn't even know what anything was going on. So I was alarmed. I didn't know what was going on. And then they told me, it was benign. I didn't know if it was malignant. I didn't know the difference between benign, malignant. I didn't know anything. So that was 25 years ago. It disappeared. She never had a problem. But she goes over there and she gets prayed for. So I'm questioning. I said, Bridget, how long have you had this lump in your breast? Oh, I just noticed it's a small one. I said, where's it at? Is it the same breast or a different one? She said it's the same side. So I didn't think anything of it because it was, it was benign before. And she said it was very small. And I said, well, let me touch it. No, you're not touching anything. I said, well, let me see it. You're not seeing anything. So she didn't let me. So I didn't think anything of it. She got prayed for, and that was it, So I said, that's why you were taking the transfer factor. And I just want better health or whatever. So I didn't hear any complaints about it or anything because it wasn't a problem 25 years ago. Fast forward to to November, it was no problem. So we're going to fast forward to Vegas when we got back from Vegas. It's about January. So it was on a Sunday, and so I'm playing the piano, and Bridget's usually in her cubby hole over here. And it was during altar call. So Bridget, I see her come out of the cubby hole, and she gets prayer from my father. So I said, okay, she doesn't normally come out there, and maybe something's wrong or whatever, So I meant to ask her, and I ended up asking her like on a Wednesday. That was Sunday, and I forgot to ask her after church. And I said, Bridget, I meant to ask you, what did you go up there to get prayer about? I saw you having Dad pray for you. I said, what did you get prayer for? And she says, shortness of breath. I said, shortness of breath? I said, what are you talking about? She said, shortness of breath. I just keep having shortness of breath. So I'm starting to put the pieces of the puzzle. So I said, so that's why you didn't want to walk in Vegas or whatever? And she wouldn't really answer. She didn't answer. And so I'm starting to put the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, shortness of breath. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, I said, is that serious that you had to go get prayer? She said, yeah. She said, I've never had shortness of breath like that. Mind you, Bridget's never, ever been sick. I've known her, as far as knockout sickness. Bridget's had like your basic cold or your basic, headache or something like that, a stomach ache. But she's never been incapacitated from anything as far as the sickness is concerned. She never missed a day in school. She's always there for school. She never missed church because of sickness. So I don't even know how to read Bridget if she was sick. Now, I'll get sick. Over the years, as you know, I'll get sick. As you know, I'll get sick. Red, he'll get sick. But Bridget's always been the strong health staple as far as in our family's concerned. Like Red will get knocked out, and I'll get knocked out. The flu will finish us off. Bridget, she's never even got the flu before, so she doesn't even know what the flu is. She's never had the flu before. So she's never had anything more than a sniffle or some congestion or a little stomach ache or a headache that she'll take some Tylenol and she'll be good to go. But she's never, ever been sick. So I had some concerns. My concerns was that she was coming up here to get prayer for shortness of breath. I never even heard of that before. I said, shortness of breath. So I remember I kept on thinking about that. It doesn't make sense. I said, Bridget, that doesn't make sense. I said, shortness of breath? I'm just telling you, it's a shortness of breath. And I'm thinking in my mind, I said, this must be pretty serious because she's coming up to get prayer for shortness of breath. So, fast forwarding, I noticed that she was coming home from school, and Bridget would stay in her office, as the people that are up in Norfolk know. She would stay in her office sometimes till 10 o'clock at night. That's the way Bridget was. She would stay in that office doing papers, doing the church books, doing things for the church. She would literally stay in her office. You'll see her office light on, and she'll stay there late majority of the times. Bridget started coming home and going right upstairs. So I said, Bridget, what are you doing? I'll be in my office and I'll hear somebody coming in the house. I'll go out there. I said, Bridget, what are you doing here at this time? I live here. I can come here anytime I want. So I got that. So she was always vague. She'll chew me out. I live here too. I can come here. Bridget, I said, I've never seen you come here this early. Well, it's a new thing now. That's what she told me, it was a new thing. So she was going upstairs. So after about a week or so, I had to sneak upstairs. I snuck upstairs to see what she was doing. I said, this doesn't make sense. I said, I've never seen Bridget come in this early. I said, who had your class? I said, school's not even over with. Pig has my class. So I go up there to see what she's doing, to see if she's watching TV, reading a book or whatever. She's knocked out, like in the middle of the day. And so I'm observing this. I'm saying, wow, I said, I've never seen this before. And all this is coming together. And I'm still not putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I mean, she was knocked out. I called her name. She couldn't even hear me, just knocked out. And this was every day. And she was leaving school early. And sometimes she'll leave after school, but she'll come right home. She wouldn't come to the cafeteria. She'll go straight upstairs. And she was hitting the sack. And she was done. And she was usually done for the rest of the night, just done. And I kept on asking. I said, Bridget, what's going on? I don't have to answer to you. I live in the same house you live in. So, I was messing with her, so she would chew me out, set me straight, let me know she lives in the same house. But I kept on noticing that she kept on going upstairs, and she was retiring early, in the afternoon. Wasn't going to the cafeteria. She was like a hermit. And when she would go to sleep, she was out. So, that was one of the pieces of the puzzle that I didn't pick up. I knew something was strange about that. Then we would usually come back to Troy on Saturdays. So the way it was is I would usually drive from Northfield to Troy on Saturdays. So whether we left on a Friday or Saturday, I was the driver. I was the designated driver. So the person that was the driver, the passenger was always the designated person that prayed. So this time she comes out of the cafeteria. I pull the truck up in front of the cafeteria. She gets in. I said, okay, let's go, Bridge. Let's pray. So I bow my head, close my eyes. I'm waiting. I don't hear anything. And I open my eyes. I'm like, what's happening? I said, Bridget, you all right? What's going on over there? And she's trying to catch her breath. What are you doing, Bridget? She's trying to answer, but she's trying to catch her breath. I said, what's going on? I said, why aren't you praying? What's going on? I said, you're designated to pray. I'm driving. What are you doing? And she says, I'm trying to catch my breath. I said, you're trying to catch your breath? I said, what do you mean you're trying to catch your breath? I said, I didn't understand what she was saying. I'm just trying to catch my breath. And so, okay, she catches her breath, and then she says the prayer. So that was another little sign. And another thing is, when she was going upstairs, and sometimes I call to see if she's all right or whatever, she'll be talking. Her voice was starting to change. It was like the strength of her voice, it was changing. I hear Bridget all the time, so I can tell any slight change, but there was a drastic change in her voice. And I don't know if you all noticed, but during her testimony, her voice had changed a little bit because of the lack of breath, the problem that she was having. So all this time, I didn't know what was going on. So now we're going to fast forward to February, like the beginning part of February. And this is the part that might sound disparaging to Bridget, but I think it's vital that I tell it. So I'm going to tell this part. I think I'm going to tell it. But anyways, so I remember, I go to bed, in the wee hours of the morning. I'm a night owl, so that's part of my job. So I do my final rounds, and I'm going upstairs, and I go to the bedroom, and I smelled some like garbage in there. It's like it's a smell. I've smelled this before. I smelled it as a child. I remember, I used to live in the woods growing up, riding horses and with Deacon Lurs and George Salwin, and so I spent a lot of time in the woods, and I've seen a lot of things. And so I remember coming upon a decaying deer carcass, and this is when we had the property up in, and I think it was Schoharie, where we had the horses at, and around that Nassau area. Was it Schoharie where we had the Skodak? So we had the horses up there. So I was doing some hiking, or I was riding a horse, and I was riding in the woods by myself. I was deep in the woods, and I came upon a carcass, a rotten carcass of a deer. So it was like it was only dead for maybe a day or two, but the deer was starting to rot. And there's a certain smell that you smell as far as rotten flesh. If you smell it once, you'll always remember it. And one time we had a horse that had it's not a ringworm that a horse has. It was like a circular, it was like a ringworm for horses or cattle, but it was rotten flesh on the side of its neck. It ended up healing. We had the vet, and he came and gave him some medication, and it took about a couple months to heal. But it was like a flesh-eating disease, and you can smell like it was the smell of death. So we've had animals that have passed away on our farm, and I've smelled rotten flesh before. So if you smelled it once, you'll never forget that smell. And so that was the smell I smelled when I came into our bedroom. I said, what in the world is that smell? I mean, and the first thing that comes to your mind, rotten flesh, but it doesn't make sense. So I got my flashlight, and I'm like looking around the house, looking around the room. I'm looking under the bed. I'm trying to see, I said, maybe Bridget left some food under the bed or something, and it rotted. And I'm just looking all over, and I can't find anything. I couldn't find, I said, what is that? I couldn't believe it. I'm looking all over for about a half hour. Like I'm just like tearing the room up, looking for something that's rotten in the room. Couldn't find it. So when I did notice it, so every time I would come up, so I came up earlier in the day, I came up later on in the day, and I went to look for it, but the smell was gone. I said, that's weird. So, okay, it was gone. And so I asked Bridget, I said, Bridget, did you smell that? And she said, no, I didn't smell anything. So next night I come up, I smelled the same thing. I said, what in the world? So I'm looking for, I said, there has to be something. So I'm on the floor looking under the bed. I'm tearing things up in the house. And I'm looking for a rotten plate of food, like it's a piece of meat that rotted. And that I'm looking for it to be filled with maggots. And I couldn't find anything. I just couldn't find anything. So it didn't make sense. So then this goes on for about a week. And then what I did notice is that I started to notice that I would usually come upstairs about 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And Bridget's usually out of bed about 6:30, 7 o'clock at the latest, but usually about 6:30. I noticed that when she would leave, the smell would leave. So I said, I'm thinking in my mind, I said, that's weird. I said, so I'm smelling around and it's gone. There's no sign of it. There's no smell of it. So I'm still tearing the room up, looking. I said, what happened? I said, Bridget, is there something in your bag or something? She said, no, I don't smell anything. I didn't smell anything. So then we would be riding, we'll be doing the old people's thing. We'll be in the car together and doing our old people's thing, going from store to store, being foodies that we are, and going from restaurant to restaurant. But I noticed that whenever I was with her, I would smell that smell. I said, what? I said, Bridget, do you smell that? No, I don't smell anything. I said, what is that smell? I couldn't get rid, I didn't understand what that smell was. And then I noticed that when she was gone, the smell was gone. So I'm starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And so this is January or February. I think we're in February now. Yeah, like third week of February. And maybe the second week of February. So I said, rotten flesh, and it's trying to make, I said, what's going on? So I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I said, oh, Bridget said that she had a lump on her breast. So being the researcher that I am, I stayed up researching for a few hours. I think I didn't go to bed until about maybe 7 o'clock that morning. And Bridget was already up and going about then. And I punched in odor and breast cancer, or pungent odor and breast cancer. So I started typing in things, and I started seeing some things, and I said leakage and the smell of leakage and things like that. So I started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So I asked Bridget, I had to sit Bridget, I said, Bridge, I said, let me talk to you. I said, are you having any problems with your breasts or anything? And so she's trying to walk away, and it's nice. No, Bridget. I said, Bridget, is there any leakage or anything? Are you having any leakage from the spot that you said that you had the lump at? And so I had to interrogate her, and I put the pressure on, and finally she comes out, yeah, I'm having some leakage in that. I said, Bridge, I said, you're having leakage? I said, how long have you been having leakage? Oh, we just started a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And I said, how is the tumor? Has it diminished? Did it go away like it did before? It actually got worse, and it's gotten pretty hard. I said, Bridget, why didn't you say anything? So I'm interrogating her, and I'm asking her everything, and it's like trying to pull teeth from someone. So she was evasive, and I have to get all this information from her. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. And so everything that she was saying, she was telling me the symptoms and things like that. And I said, Bridget, I said, you know what this sounds like? I said, this sounds like cancer. She said, I know. She said, I think it's inflammatory breast cancer. I said, what in the world? And that's what I thought it was too, because I did some research, and she didn't even let me see it. She wouldn't let me do anything, but I was going by what I had smelled, and I was putting the signs and everything together, and I said, Bridget, how did you know? Yeah, I did some research, and I think it's inflammatory breast cancer. It's a rare type of cancer, and it's fast spreading. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I know this. I said, Bridget, why would you let this go? I was just trying to handle things and this and that. I said, Bridget, you should have let somebody know. I said, and I said, Bridget, and so I started talking to her about her breathing because it was scaring me. I was putting the pieces of the puzzle, and she was telling me about her problems with breathing and things like that. And I remember she was having problems. She was going up the stairs extremely slow. And I said, Bridget, you know what? I said, I think it's metastasized to your lungs. And so I'm thinking she's going to tell my parents. So this was something very personal to her, I had to get it out of her. She wasn't going to tell me. So I was going to leave it up to her to talk to my parents about it. So I got nervous. I said, and I'm thinking, I said, this is advanced cancer because if you would have smelled it, I mean, just smelled the way it smelled, I knew it was just, I mean, I didn't have any experience with dealing with any breast cancer or any advanced cancer, but dealing with this, I knew it had to be some sort of advanced cancer. And doing the research on inflammatory breast cancer and seeing that it was like the closest thing to pancreatic cancer, because at least with pancreatic cancer, you don't have any symptoms until like it's really too late. Well, with the inflammatory breast cancer, you'll have some signs, but it moves so fast and spreads so fast, and it's so invasive that it's like a fast spreading fire, and you really have to move on this thing. And so me having no experience, I helped Sister Grimes with her situation, but she wasn't stage 4. She was like in the early stages. And the Lord blessed, and she followed the protocol, and she was successful with her kidney situation. But this was a whole different ballgame. When you're dealing with stage 1, stage 2, and then when you're dealing with stage 4 advanced cancer, it's a whole different ballpark, which I didn't know and which I came to find out. So I left it up to Bridget to talk to my parents about it. So I said, Bridge, and so I didn't hear from my mom, and she's going about her, her regular duties and things like that. So I said, so right away I did what I knew to do best. I got her on we got her on a raw food diet, and she actually wanted to do another fast. She wanted to do another water fast, which, looking back in retrospect was the wrong thing to do for advanced cancer, water fasting. What I didn't know, obviously she didn't know, she thought she was doing the right thing. So a week goes by and I don't hear anything from my parents. So I go to Bridget, I said, Bridget, have you talked to Mom and Dad yet? No, I haven't said anything. I said, no. I said, I got to make this call right now. I said, forget this. So I called my mom. I said, Mom, I've known for about a week now. I said, Bridget has, she has stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. My mom said, what? What are you talking about? I said, she has stage 4. I said, I'm not a doctor. I said, I'm not pretending to be a doctor, but from the research I've done, I said, I've done some extensive research in the last week, and I said, everything is pointing to advanced stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. Are you serious? John. So she's calling my father. Buki says that Bridget has advanced inflammatory breast cancer. And my father said, Lord, in Jesus' name, help us, Lord. So I said, and my heart just drops. I got scared when they got scared. And so they called Bridget and talked to Bridget and things like that. So what are you doing? And I said, well, we've changed her diet and we're doing some things or whatever. And so that's when we went to attempt to try to reverse this thing around. So the whole time, Bridget showed no fear whatsoever. So we talked about it and the plan of attack of what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do, and this and that. And so she was, I was a little more unnerved. I was a lot more unnerved than she was. She really wasn't unnerved. She was finally into supplements. She did everything I asked her to do. But little did I know the protocols that I had her following just were not strong enough for stage 4 cancer. And this is part of the learning process. So, she's following and everything. And so we're thinking, you remember, we're going back to, she had the long sleeves on during the summer. Well, what happened was she got a tumor which was blocking her lymph nodes, which was causing swelling in her left arm. And this was way back in the summer. And mind you, she never had any problems, and after talking with her, she never had any problems, any health problems, as far as her left side. The tumor it started in her left breast. And that's where she started having problems at. And so in February, the time I told you all in the beginning where we started, she was at the dentist. Little did I know during that time, she had had 9 teeth extracted. So now you're trying to figure out, well, what does teeth extractions have to do with breast cancer? Well, I didn't think it would have anything to do with it. Even if I did know that she had 9 teeth extracted at that time, I wouldn't have known. At the time, the knowledge that I had no idea it had anything to do with breast cancer. And it just didn't make sense. Okay, you get teeth extracted. What does that have to do with breast cancer? So you fast forward it to, doing the research. What happened was, well, Bridget, everybody that knows Bridget or it's been close to Bridget over the years, we know that Bridget has a sweet tooth. She loves her sweets. She ate more candy and more junk food than she ate real food. She didn't even eat a lot of real food. She loved the junk food. And so what happened, this is what I'm assuming over the years is, and Bridget loved to brush her teeth. But the problem is, on her bedside, ever since we've been married, always on her bedside and her nightstand, she always had a stack of candy. So if she brushed her teeth, she would, and if she's doing something, watching TV or reading a book or whatever at night, she was eating her candy and her junk food. So she would nullify even brushing her teeth. So that's why I'm assuming where the cavities came in and where it got so bad where she did have to get her teeth extracted. I didn't even know she had teeth problems, any problem, dental problems. I just know that her and Red lived at the dentist getting their teeth cleaned. So I had no idea she had any dental problems. And so in February, she had gotten 9 teeth extracted, and she had gotten 5 teeth extracted on her left side where the breast cancer was. And another time, I'll go over a little bit now, but you can do your research. What they found, Dr. Price in the 1920s, 1950s, they found out he was a dentist. What he found out is root canals and tooth extractions, which causes cavitations. What they do is they're not properly cleaned out. So when you have a tooth extracted, most dentists, your regular normal dentists, they're not trained and they're not trained to properly clean a extracted tooth out, clean the bone area out, which they call a cavitation. And so what they'll do is they will extract the tooth and all the bacteria and which caused the cavities at first, it's still there in your gums. And so what happens, your gums heal, and then what you have is a cesspool of bacteria that's festering in your jaw area. And if you can go into Google and look into your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system it goes from your jaw area down through your shoulders, down through your armpits, through your breast and down through your body. And you'll see your lymphatic system. So I'm pretty sure what happened was when she got those teeth extracted, I don't think it was a coincidence that less than 2 months later, she started having problems with her, under her arm. She started having some swelling and some problems under her arm. And that she told me she started to have problems around that time. And I know it wasn't a coincidence that, that after she got that, procedure done, that's when she started having problems, and that's when she started making her own deodorant. She thinks it's all just an irritation under her arm. And so that's where everything actually started as far as her health starting to decline. So going back to telling Sister Massey and Elder Massey about it, and they prayed for her and everything, and we're on a protocol, that's good enough for stage 1, stage 2, maybe stage 3, but not stage 4. And, little did we know, by the time I found out that she had cancer, it had already metastasized to her lungs. So all this time when she was having these changes where she didn't want to walk, she decided she didn't want to walk. She wanted to be dropped off in front of the store. She couldn't get up. She was struggling getting up the stairs. Those were signs that it had metastasized to her lungs. So the cancer, she had advanced breast cancer that had metastasized, breast cancer metastasis that had metastasized to her lungs in 2015, like in November. because she was struggling to breathe back then. She was having respiratory problems, and little did I know. And, so all these things are coming. I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together, But, we talked, and Bridget and I talked, and we talked about beating this cancer, and her attitude, she was always, keeping God first, and she wants the Lord to heal her and things like that, and she can't wait till she beats this because she wants to get here. And she said she's not going to have, she said, how I don't usually get up and testify, I only do it once in a while. She said, I'm going to testify all the time. She said, once the Lord delivers me from this, breast cancer. So we're thinking we're making a leeway. She's doing the right thing, and we're following our cancer protocol for cancer 2, cancer stage 3 at the most. We're following it. So I'm thinking we're making leeway, and she's still getting along. She's teaching schools. She's still driving to Northfield, back and forth. And well, she drives back from Northfield. I would drive to Troy, but she's still getting around and everything. So we're going back to Northfield, and all of a sudden Bridget says, and we're driving, I'm feeling good about myself. Yes, I'm, patting myself on the back. Yeah, I'm doing a good job. I'm helping Bridget get over this cancer, feeling real good about myself. She says, you know what, Buki, it's starting to spread over to my right breast. I said, what? My heart just dropped. I said, what do you mean it's spreading over to your right breast? She said, yeah, it's starting to crust over and it's moving over to my right breast. I just got so weak. I said, oh my God. I'm thinking this in my mind. I said, Jesus' name. I said, Bridget, are you sure? She said, yeah, it's spreading over to the right. And she just said it all just calm. She's as calm as anything. I'm looking at her. And I was so weak driving on the way back to Troy. I mean, it was like everything just, I was just so weak. And I'm thinking, like, what else am I supposed to do? So I've just immersed myself into reading and research. Like, what am I doing? I'm doing everything right. And I'm researching and researching. So I called my mom and I called my father. I said, Dad, Bridget said it's starting to spread. He said, it is? Yeah, she said it's starting to spread over to her right breast. And I said, we got to do something different. And he said, well, let's stick with the plan and let's do what we're doing and this and that. So we're sticking with it and sticking with it. And so we're starting to see some leeway. She said, oh, it stopped. So all of a sudden, I remember maybe it was like 2 weeks later, she says, oh, it's spreading more. It's spreading more over to the right side. The right side is starting, it seems like there's a tumor in the right side now. I said, not again. I thought it was making some leeway. So it got to the point where I called my mom. I said, Mom, I was researching. I couldn't find anything I was doing wrong. I was trying to find a stronger protocol. So I called my mom. I said, Mom, you know what? I said, we got to get Bridget to Mexico. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, I think we got to get her to Mexico to one of these cancer clinics. Because I said, I think I'm in over my head. I said, and then she said she thought I was kidding around, but I was serious because I said, I'm in over my head over here with this right over here. Because I said, we knew we weren't going the chemotherapy route because that wasn't happening. She wasn't going to do any chemotherapy. We've seen people with chemotherapy and radiation, and we see how that ends up. So that was never a question. So I wasn't calling the shots on that. I mean, I didn't want her to do it anyways. She was going to call the shots on it. She did not want to do any chemotherapy and radiation. She definitely wasn't going down that route. And so I told my mom, I said, I think, she thought I was joking, but I was serious. I said, Mom, I think we're going to have to go to one of these cancer clinics or do something. I told her, no, it's expensive, but I said, we're going to have to do something, raise some money to get to a cancer clinic because I said, I'm in over my head. So she talks to my father, and then my father calls me and they said, well, just stick with what you're doing and let's do what we have to do and let's see what happens. So I did some research and I found the Budwick Select protocol. So I talked to my mom about that. So let's try that. So we were preparing to do that. So in the meantime, we went to go see Dr. DeRoma, my mom's doctor, to see, she said, well, they might be able to do the vitamin C protocol, So this was like in mid-April. We came to see Dr. DeRoma. And at this time, Bridget was starting to get weak. She was driving around, but I remember, no, this is like the last time. She drove a little bit, but I was doing most of the driving while we were up here. And then we went to go see Dr. DeRoma up in Vermont. He has an office in Delmar, and he has one in Vermont. So we go there, and Bridget's, she's getting weaker at the time, and she's, as far as her breathing is concerned, her respiratory problems, they were increasing. So we get to Dr. DeRoma, and we're talking with him and things like that, and I didn't like some of the things. The first thing is, he said, what do you think it is, and this and that, and so, well, I gave him my diagnosis. I told him I wasn't a doctor. I told him I believe that it's, I told him my personal diagnosis, that it is she has inflammatory breast cancer, and it's stage 4, and it's metastasized to her lungs. So he's looking at me like, what is this guy talking about? He's talking about metastasizing and this and that and whatever. So he went to, he goes to check her out. So Bridget, he had to do an exam, so he wanted to see. So he didn't give too much credence to what I had to say because I'm not a doctor. But I just told him that's what I thought it was. And I saw the way he looked at me like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever. So he's asking her something, and he goes to check her out. So Bridget said, you got to go. Get out the room. I said, no. My mom says, no, Bookie's going to stay right here. He's your husband. He can stay here. So I stayed there, and he goes to do the exam. When he opened up her shirt, I didn't show it, but I almost died. I said, good God Almighty. I couldn't believe what I saw. And and Bridget was watching me, and she went to see my reaction. She glanced over at me. I almost died when I saw that. I knew I had smelled the smell, and she told me about the tumor, but she would never let me examine her. When I saw that, I didn't show it. My mom, my mom, she couldn't tell or anything, and Bridget didn't. I did a good acting job. When I say I almost died, I was sitting in the chair. If I could have fell out the chair, I would have fell out the chair. I almost passed out right at the chair. But I played it strong, because I saw Bridget looking at me, and I wanted to be strong for Bridget. I almost died when I saw that. I could not believe that. And I'm looking at it, and I said, oh, God, I'm thinking, Jesus' name. I said, what am I up against? I said, this is crazy. I said, I didn't know it was this bad. Good God. And then so my mom said, oh, that wasn't bad, because my mom had saw it before. She had seen it maybe a month before. She said, it's gotten better. She said, it's not as bad as it was. I said, it was worse than that? She said, yeah. She said, it was a lot worse than that. She said, it's actually gotten better since the time I first saw it. I said, how could it be worse than that? And she said, believe me, she said, it was worse than that. And so that thing bothered me. It really, really bothered me, because I didn't know what I was up against. I had never seen anything like that before. It was like some flesh-eating disease. I had never, you can go on pictures. Any picture you go into Google, you punch in inflammatory breast cancer, I've been through all the pictures. There's no picture that you can find on the internet or in the medical books. I've looked at some of the published medical books of inflammatory breast cancer. I've never seen anything this bad before, ever. I've never seen anything this bad. And I've done hundreds of hours of research. I've looked for it, I've paid for articles and research papers, never seen anything this bad. So I just wanted to see if it was just me. So fast forward, and when, just dealing with the registered nurses and the doctors, they told me personally that they had never seen anything like this. They said they've seen inflammatory breast cancer, but they had never seen this advanced, because they said before it got that advanced, they said the patient was already dead. So they had never seen anything like this before. So they didn't even know how she was functioning. So we went to Dr. DeRoma and whatever, and so we're in Vermont. We came back, and we had to get some x-rays, because I told him he wanted to get x-rays of her upper body. And I had told him that I had some concerns about it metastasizing to, I had diagnosed her as the cancer metastasizing to her lungs because of the respiratory problems that she was having. So he confirmed from what he saw. He had seen inflammatory breast cancer before. He had never seen anything like that before, ever. And so we went to St. Mary's to get some x-rays for her upper body. So Bridget ended up getting some x-rays. And so I think Dooney was there with us. She happened to be at the hospital for something. She was doing something at the hospital. So we ended up meeting Dooney. We were talking with Dooney. And so I don't know if Dooney remembers, but we were waiting for the results. It was like two of them. They came out frantic. Like you can see the horror on their faces. Mrs. Massey, you need to stay right there. We need to call your doctor. And I knew that wasn't good. Dooney, do you remember that? And it was like I knew something was wrong because you can just see the fear in their eyes. And he said, we're trying to get a hold of your doctor right now. We need to get a hold of your doctor. And Bridget's just as calm as anything. We're just talking with Dooney and whatever. And I saw the fear in their eyes, and I saw the urgency that they had expressed about trying to contact Dr. DeRoma. And then another one came out. Okay, just hold still. We haven't been able to contact them. And what number it is? Is he in the Delmar office or in the Vermont office? And they were trying to get a hold of him. They weren't able. Long story short, they weren't able to get a hold of Dr. DeRoma. So we ended up leaving the hospital, and we didn't go back to Norfolk because we had to stay over the weekend to get the results and see what he was saying about the X-ray. So I believe it was like on a Tuesday. So he finally got a hold of, Dr. Roma got a hold of Bridget, and she was sitting down in our front room on the couch. And while she was sitting down on the front, on the couch, because at this time, fatigue was really starting to set in. Like doing anything was starting to be a chore for Bridget. I mean, she couldn't juice for herself anymore. Red was juicing for her. And so she was sitting down just resting. Like anytime she could, she would just sit down. The walking was like it was a chore for her. So she gets the call from Dr. DeRoma. She says, oh, this is Dr. DeRoma. So she puts him on speakerphone. She goes and puts him on speakerphone. We're listening to him. And he says, well, he's talking about, yes, your husband was right. It's advanced stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer. And I believe it has metastasized to your lungs. We're alarmed because we see a large mass in your lung area. So we don't know if it's a tumor or if it's fluid. We don't know, but I believe it's metastasized or whatever. And so he's trying to discuss a course of action that he was going to take with Bridget. And she said, well, you need to get, and he's as bad as this is, you need to get into chemotherapy as soon as possible. We can start the chemotherapy on this and that. And Bridget says, well, I'm not going, she says, you can forget about that. I'm not doing chemotherapy. We're going to go the alternative route. She said, I've known, like I told you before, I've known, my husband and I, we've known too many people that have had chemotherapy and we don't like the results. It always ends up bad, and we're going to do this the natural way. And he says, well, Bridget, I'm standing over there, and she's got him on speakerphone. She's sitting there. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. He says, without any conventional treatment, he said, I'm going to give you 1 to 2 months. I looked at the phone. Bridget looks up at me, and she said, what do you mean, 1 to 2 months what? And I said, Bridget, he's talking about 1 to 2 months to live. And she says, 1 to 2 months what? And he's quiet. He doesn't say anything. And then she says, Dr. DeRoma, 1 to 2 months what? That I'll be in hospice? He said, yeah, hospice. You'll be 1 to 2 months hospice. He said, we knew. He was really saying she had 1 to 2 months to live. And I knew that's what he was saying. He was hesitant. And so Bridget gave him a lead-in answer, said 1 to 2 months hospice, and he starts studying, 1 to 2 months hospice. Yeah, 1 to 2 months hospice. So you really need to get this chemotherapy. Well, she said, I'm not going to do it, but I'll talk to my husband and tell him whatever, because he didn't know I was listening to him on the phone. So she hangs the phone up, and I said, Bridget, he was saying that she had 1 to 2 months to live. She said, oh, okay, just like that. And she was just as calm as anything. So I'm just trying to detect to see if she's all right. Because these are things, when you hear somebody 1 to 2 months, you've seen that in movies. Everybody's heard that in movies, or you've read stories like that. but I've never actually heard that before, dealing with someone, with yourself, or dealing with someone that you love. And you say 1 to 2 months. It was literally like a movie. So I'm trying to detect to see if she's all right. And she was just as fine as anything, just sitting there. And she says, okay, go call Mom. So I call my mom, and I said, Mom, we just got off the phone with Dr. DeRoma, and I'm still in the front room with Bridget, and she's sitting down, just relaxed, just chilling. He was just chilling. And I said, we just got off the phone with Dr. DeRoma, and Dr. DeRoma gave Bridget 1 to 2 months to live. He said, what? I said, he gave her 1 to 2 months to live. Call your father right now. I said, okay. I said, so call him right now and tell him what Dr. DeRoma said. So I go to call him. So I'm walking in the back towards the bedroom to call him. I said, Bridget, let me go call Dad. So all of a sudden, when I get back there, the Taya spirit hit me. This is a joke for the people that grew up with Taya. Taya, when we were growing up, Taya would cry over everything. She cried when Punky Brewster's dog passed away. She would cry. I mean, back then, before there were VHSs, we would get these 16 millimeter movies, and we would watch them in children's ministries, and we would watch TV and Punky Brewster and things like that. And Taya had the reputation for crying over everything. That was like the joke. She was a little girl. She would cry over everything. A movie, she's crying. You hear some sniffling, and turn around, there's Taya crying, shaking and crying. So that Taya spirit jumped over me. And I'm not even a crier. I don't even cry. So I got over there, and all of a sudden the Taya spirit jumped on me. And I was like a little kid that had just gotten a spanking. You know when you get spanked and you can't catch your breath? I was like out of control. I was crying like crazy. I was like, when I say I was sobbing like a little baby, it just caught me off guard. And I had to close the door so Bridget couldn't hear me. And I was like, I was crying, and I dialed my father, and then he was about on. I had to hang the phone up to compose myself. I was trying to get myself together. I said, what in the world is happening with me? I was done. I was crying a river. When I say I was crying like a baby. And that was the first time that I ever cried during the whole ordeal. I don't know what happened to me. That Taya spirit jumped on me. I was crying like a baby. So 10 minutes goes by, and Bridget, I think she heard me, I was out of control, like, trying to catch myself. And Bridget says, Bookie, are you all right? And I couldn't answer, and I was trying to catch I was shaking, and then I finally composed myself. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm just trying to call Dad, and she can tell my voice is all shaky. I was done. Bookie, are you sure? Are you sure you're all right? She was comforting me, and she was just as normal. Bookie, are you all right? And I said, this is crazy. I said, she's just as strong as anything, and I'm just down here breaking out, just crying like crazy, like a baby. So finally, I composed myself, and then my mom called. She said, you didn't call your father yet? Oh, I'm about to call him right now. So I go to call him again. I had to close the door, and then I closed the bathroom door. I went to call him in the bathroom, and I broke down again. I had to hang up on him again. Hung up. I just had to compose myself, just crying like a little baby. Just shaking and crying. Then finally, I got myself together, and I tried to be real strong, put a little bass in my voice, clear my voice up. Yeah, Dad, they said that Bridget had 1 to 2 months to live. And so, my father's giving me encouragement, quoting scriptures, and you don't worry about such and such, and God is this and that, and he's, quoting some scriptures. Let me speak to Bridget. So before I can bring the phone out to Bridget, I had to clean my eyes up. I was all red. I looked in there. I said, okay, hold on, Dad. I said, let me go up into the front room. I saw my eyes were all red and everything, so I had to hang the phone up. I had to get myself right and compose myself. It took me like 15 minutes to get myself together. I keep on hearing Bridget, Bookie, are you all right? Yeah, I'm just, let me use the bathroom for a second. I'll be out in a second. So I'm getting myself together, cleaned my face up, and put my strong face on. And I said, yeah, Dad wants to talk to you. So I came out there all nice and strong. So he's quoting scriptures and talking to Bridget and, giving her some words of encouragement. And I'm watching and trying to observe. And she's just as strong. She said, yes, I believe God. And she was just she was a trooper. She showed no signs of fear. She didn't cry, not one bit. So anyways, we ended up going back to Northfield. And things are starting to advance. And so at this time, we had decided that we were going to do the Budwig Select. And we were looking into the GB4000. I'll tell you about that at another time. It's a machine that, gives out certain frequencies and it reverses cancer. It's basically a Rife machine, but because of the FDA, you can't call it a Rife machine. You can just punch in RIFE and on Google and you'll learn something about it. But anyways, it's a machine that alternative people use to help reverse advanced cancers and HIV and things like that. But so we're looking into this, and we did some research, and we're waiting for the things to come in. And so we're going to do a detox. So I wanted to do a detox before, but she was doing some fasting and things like that. So we started to doing some detox. And so, mind you, Bridget was after we had gotten back from Vegas, she had went on one 14-day fast and one 15-day fast. And looking back after the research, that's the worst thing for any advanced cancer patient to do is to water fast because, you need those nutrients. If you're in the early stages as far as stage 1, stage 2, you can water fast. Stage 4, and especially advanced stage 4, never ever water fast. You can juice fast because your body's being replenished with minerals and vitamins and things like that. And healthy enzymes, but they'll tell you never ever water fast. And so what happened was she went on the 14-day and the 15-day water fast. Unbeknownst to her and me, she caused herself to go into a state of cachexia, which is called muscle wasting. So, I didn't know anything about cachexia. I knew about it, but I didn't really do any extensive research into it, and I didn't think it was applicable to her situation. I thought, just because she was fasting, that's the reason why she lost weight. Well, she did lose weight, but it was a weird type of weight. It was like your weight was coming off in weird places, the way it was. And it was just like, she was lost large chunks of muscle. And, looking back and, retrospectively, she had caused herself to go into cachexia. We didn't know. We thought she was doing a good thing. She was water fasting, not juice fasting. She was water fasting. So she was in a state of cachexia. She had lost her appetite, and I was trying to, get her to eat, and she was taking her supplements, and Red had the juice for her, and she was basically confined. It got to the point where she couldn't make it upstairs anymore. She was so weak that she couldn't make it upstairs anymore. And she was staying downstairs in my, she was sleeping. I have a big recliner in my office. And so she was staying in my office, and there's a bathroom that's next door to my office. So it was more convenient for her to leave my office and use the restroom, because at this time she was still able to do some walking. She was able to get back and forth to the bathroom and things like that. So what happened was I knew it was imperative that we do a liver detox, because I knew her liver was toxic. And so the first day we went to do the liver detox, it was hours later that she went into a serious respiratory distress. And so she was all right. She was talking to me, and we thought things were getting better. And that morning, she was doing pretty good. She had more strength, and she came to the front room. We were sitting down and talking, and so I helped her. I was her cheerleader to get that nasty liver detox drink down, and she finally got it down, and she went to her room and everything. So fast forward into later on in the day, she says, "Boki, I have to go to the hospital." I said, "You have to go to the hospital?" She said, "I can't breathe." I said, "Is it that bad, Bridge?" She said, "I can't breathe." She said, "I just can't breathe." And so I called my parents. I said, "Mom," I said, "Dad," I said, "we're on our way to the hospital." So keep us in your prayers. I said, "We're on our way." And my father said, "Hey, go ahead and bring her to the hospital and get her checked out to see what's going on." So we ended up going. Pig and Sister Holmes came up, and that she ended up staying. She ended up, they diagnosed her, the same thing that Dr. you know, Daroma said, this is what we already knew that she had. And so, long story short, she was sent home on hospice. She got fluid extracted from her lungs, which it wasn't a tumor, but what had happened is she had pleural effusion, which is fluid buildup from the cancer, which had spread to her lungs. So she was getting daily extractions of the fluid because of the fluid buildup was giving her problems breathing, and she was having respiratory problems. So we were watching videos of the truth about cancer and things like that, and we were praying together, and it seemed like she was having serious problems. It was just getting worse and worse, and it was regardless. And at this time, I think the second time we had just a couple of days before, maybe like 5 days prior, we had just started the Budwig and Select protocol. We had just started it. And no, we just started the Budwig. We didn't start the rest of it. We started the Budwig. And we started doing the coffee enemas, but we didn't do the other protocol. The strongest part of it was the Select, and we didn't get to start that yet. And so the day that we were going to start the strongest part of the protocol, which I know now we should have started that early on. I was there with her in the morning, so we had timed it all out. We had the schedule all, we had the schedule all lined up, and she was starting all of her supplements at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't even go, I stayed downstairs in my office, and she was in the downstairs room. So we came, I got her supplements. She's starting to take her supplements and everything, and we're talking, and this is normal. It's normal Bridget. We're just talking, and it seems like she's getting stronger. She says, well, if this arm swells up anymore, she says, I'm not going to be able to feed myself the supplements. You're going to have to give them to me. But I said, we're going to get that swelling down or whatever. So we're just talking, just normal talking, having a normal conversation with Bridget. And so I stayed down there for about an hour, and so, okay, Bridget, I'm going upstairs. So it was about 6:45, I go upstairs. 7 o'clock, I get a call. She calls me on her cell phone. I say, it's Bridget. And I'm sleeping. I woke up, and I woke up. I said, wow, it's only been 15 minutes. She called me. Bookie, I need help. I said, huh? Help me, I need help. I said, Jesus' name. I throw my clothes on, go downstairs, and she's in the bathroom. I said, what's wrong? I said, what's wrong, Bridget? She says, pray, I need you to pray. I said, good God. So I'm just speaking in tongues, praying. I didn't even know I said, what am I praying about? She said, just pray. So I'm just praying, and she's praying. And then I said, Bridget, what's wrong? She said, I can't breathe. And I said, Bridget, what happened? And she didn't even have her oxygen on, because for the last week, she wasn't even using any oxygen. So I was confused when she was saying she couldn't breathe. She said, I can't breathe. And I had just saw her that morning. She was doing good. And so she comes out of the bathroom, and she manages to get to her room and sits in the chair. And I'm talking with her, and I said, Bridget, what's going on? And so I get her the oxygen. I turn the oxygen on. It's the first time she had it in a week. And she gets the oxygen, and she says, I just can't breathe. I said, what happened? I didn't know what happened. I said, did I do something? I didn't know what happened. I didn't know if it was the supplements I gave her or anything. I didn't know what happened. It was like 1 minute she was good, and the next minute she couldn't breathe. So the hospice nurse that came, the helper, she came, and she comes, and she's going to take care of Bridget, and Bridget says she just wants to just try to breathe. And so I'm saying, this thing's not good. So I call my parents, and I'm saying, Bridget, I said, we need some prayer right now. And I woke them up, and I told them, I said, we need some prayer right now. I said, Bridget is struggling to breathe. So my parents are praying, my father's praying, and things like that. So it seems like things are starting to get better, and the nurse is there, and she's rubbing Bridget's back and there, and I had been up for over 24 hours. I was done. I was tired. So there's the room right over there, and down the stairs there's a couch. So she looked like she was stabilizing. So it looked good. She was rocking, and she was stabilizing. And the top nurse, she she was coming in a little bit, so I knew she was coming. About half hour she was going to come. So I go down to the couch. I said, Bridge, I said, I'm going to come down. I'm going to go down to the couch, and I'm just going to sit down here for a little bit. And I said, if you need me, just call me. I told the nurse, I said, if you need me, call me. And I was down there for about 10 minutes and dozing off. And all of a sudden she says, Maurice, I think you need to come. I said, she's not responding. Oh, no, Red comes in, and he speaks. She always lights up when she sees Red, you know, and that's her baby. So she lights up and she sees Red. So Red comes in. He says, hi, Mom. And she says, hi. No, she doesn't respond. That's what it was. I was confused because she didn't respond. Whenever he comes and speaks to her or she sees him, she always lights up, even as bad as she would be feeling. And she doesn't say anything. He says, hi, Mom. And I heard that she didn't respond. I said, that's not normal. So then they call me. She calls me back up there. And so I'm trying to call. I said, Bridget, you all right? Bridget. And she's not responding. And then she was like in a daze. Her eyes were bugged out. She was drooling. I said, good God Almighty. And so I'm praying, and then the nurse comes, and we're trying to get her going. And I called my mom, and then Pig came, and we eventually, she couldn't breathe, and they called 911, and they got her going to the hospital. Then to top it off on that, I've been up to Northfield for like 4 years now. I'm driving to the hospital, and we're going behind the ambulance. I guess they were ahead of us or whatever, or they went another route. But I knew how to get there. We passed the exit. I was burnt up. I passed that exit. I don't know what happened. My mind was just going. There was 1,000 things going on mine at one time. So I passed the exit, turned around. Marquita and Tristan ended up getting to the hospital before us. So we ended up getting there, and then you're trying to process things, and because the way she looked, it looked like she was done. It looked like she was done, and you're all trying to process that, process everything. You're thinking, this can't be it, because she looked like she was a done deal. Right then and there, she looked like she was a done deal, and I'm trying to process everything. So we get there, and we're in the waiting room, and they don't let us in. They're working on her, and then I go and I talk to them, and I said, well, what do you want us to do? And they're saying, oh, no DNR. I said, no, forget that DNR stuff. You sure you don't want a DNR? No, we don't want a DNR. I said, do whatever you have to do to keep her alive. I said, do whatever you have to do. So we're in that waiting room, and we tore the waiting room up. We're just praying like crazy. Praying. We went to instant into tongues, wearing it out, speaking in tongues. And then we called my parents, and it seemed like my parents got there in record time. They were moving. My father, we're on our way. And the thing I just wanted to make sure my father got there before she passed away, if she was going to pass away. And so it was just such a relief to see my parents coming up there, and they came in there, and I saw my parents, and then all these emotions just came. So I just started crying like crazy. So I had to go in the bathroom and go hide in the bathroom. I said, good gracious alive, that tired spirit jumped on me again. I was crying like crazy, crying like a little baby. So I composed myself, got myself together. Then we go to see Bridget, and then to see her with all those tubes in her eye was swollen. Oh, I was crying like a little baby, so I had to hide behind my mother because I didn't know if Bridget was capable of seeing me. I didn't want her to see me crying like a little baby. I want, even though she's been the pillar of strength, I didn't want her to see me crying. And I was trying to get myself together, and I'm just shaking and crying. I said, good gracious alive, I've never cried so much in my life, just crying like crazy. So what happened was she ended up being in that hospital, in the Greenfield Hospital, for about a week. And then what they told me is the doctors told me that she'll never leave that hospital alive. That's what they told me. And so, Maurice, you're getting your hopes up high. She's not going to leave the hospital alive. It's impossible. She shouldn't still be living. We've never seen a case this bad before, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, they weren't capable of taking care of a case that advanced before, so we transferred her to the Springfield Hospital, which, they were more, they had more expertise as far as dealing with lung cancer. Because now we're not dealing with the breast cancer. The breast cancer wasn't the problem. We're dealing with the lung cancer now, which was severe and advanced, in itself. So we get her transferred. And during all this time, she has the tube in her. She's under heavy sedation under propofol, Propofol is a drug that they use to bring you under for operations and things like that. But high dosages, if you do research, high dosages of propofol can cause memory loss. It can cause dementia and things like that. And, signs of things that would be similar to Alzheimer's, And so we had to fight, Pig, Shell. Thank God for Pig and Shell during that time. I mean, I definitely needed help as far as, being at the hospital and things like that. And the way the Lord orchestrated it is how Shell got up there at the right time, Pig was there, and we were able to be Bridget's advocate for her because they had her at such a high dosage of propofol, which was unnecessary. We fought to get the propofol dosage down and get it, and we actually got her off of propofol, altogether. But during this time, she was not eating anything, and obviously she had the tube in her, and I knew she needed to eat something, but I wanted to give her all natural, organic, feeding food, and both hospitals wouldn't allow it because it's under their care, so they weren't going to allow anything except what they were, their highly processed, sugar processed food, which is detrimental to any cancer patient. So she was already in a state of cachexia, and she went into a further state of cachexia, which destroyed her liver. So so we get there, and so they said, the doctor there, he's an expert, and he's been doing it for 30 years. Another nurse, the hospice nurse, they said, she's not going to leave the hospital alive. And so I know this is when you all were getting reports about, praying. And during this whole time, you can always feel the presence. You can, always feel the presence of the Lord, and you knew that the saints were praying because we have a praying church. Because I remember my ordeal in the hospital, and the first thing I always requested is prayer from the saints. And one thing about us, we might have some flaws as a church, but we can never deny that we're a praying church. And we definitely felt the prayers. I want to thank everyone that was praying for us, but we felt the prayers. And so, they were telling us she was never going to leave the hospital. Once we take the tube out, it's going to be a done deal. It's over with. And so we were thinking about bringing her home. And then we changed it around. There was too many logistics that were involved and things like that. So they brought us into a conference room. So we're thinking, we're looking at our numbers, and they're starting to get a little better. And so they're bringing us into the conference room. And I said, I've seen this before. I said, I've seen this in movies before, and I've seen these in documentaries before. Conference room is not a good thing. So my mom didn't know. She was all, yeah, we're going in the conference room. I said, that's not a good thing. So we're going in the conference room, and my mom's jolly, and everybody else thinks everything's good. I knew it wasn't a good thing because I know about a conference room. So they got hospice there. They got the head doctors there, the head hospice nurse there. So they spelled their thing. Once we take this out, she's going to die, such and such and such, and this and that. We've never seen a case this advanced before, and whatever. So I felt pretty good about myself. And at this time, I guess I was benefiting from the prayers of the saints because I felt real good and strong about myself. Like during that whole week, I felt good because I knew she was coming out. I knew she was coming out unscathed out of that hospital. I knew it. And it had to have been the prayers of the saints because I never felt this strong before. I was confident. I was so confident that my sister, Buff, she actually had to have a conference with my parents because she had some concerns about me. Like, Dad and Mom, Buki has some unexpected, some unrealistic expectations about Bridget coming out of this. And I think he's going to have a problem when if she passes away when they pull this tube. So I don't know what my mom and them said because they never said anything to me about it. But she had some concerns about my unrealistic expectations. But I was filled with faith. And when I say I was filled, I was confident. We got into that conference room. I was like borderline cocky. I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good about myself. And I said, well, we believe in a higher power. And I said, because I was trying to find out the plan they were going to have once the tube was pulled. So that's what I was concerned. I wasn't concerned about whether she was going to survive or not, because I was so confident. And I guess I had so much faith, but it could have came off as cockiness or confidence. It wasn't in myself, but it was in the power of God. And so I said, you know what? I said, what do you have in place? And they didn't want to have anything in place. They said, well, the only thing they wanted to do is they were talking about palliation, the drugs they're going to give her to soothe her pain going into the next afterlife. No. I said, no. I said, we need to find out a plan. I said, we believe in a higher power, so we believe that she's going to come out of this, and so we need to find out the plan. And they said, Maurice, and they're trying to explain to me and the family. And so my father starts talking about, well, there's medical miracles. And what about these medical miracles? Now, what if there's a medical miracle and such, and we know you don't believe so. This clown, the doctor, I don't know what his name was. This we call him Dr. Doomsday. That's what we called him, because everything was a doom and gloom. So he was pretty certain that it was a teaching hospital. So I remember him talking to his students, and they had just wrote Bridget off. So she was a done deal. We had unrealistic expectations of her surviving when that tube was pulled. So it comes the time, to prepare. So I'm talking to Bridget. I said, Bridge, I go to her. She still has the tube in her, and she's conscious. And they had taken her off of the propofol. So I talked to her. I said, Bridge, I said, they're expecting you to die once they pull this tube. I said, we're going to pull the tube. I believe it's on a Wednesday. And I think we had gathered that, the church was praying and everything. I said, they're going to pull this tube. And I said, you're supposed to die within minutes. So she shows no fear. She just looks. And I said, but you're going to be all right. I said, God's going to bring you through. And she just shakes her head. And I said, do you understand? She said, yes. So the doctors, the nurses, they thought I was too aggressive. They didn't like my jubilance, and they thought I was too aggressive, and they thought I was coercing Bridget to do things she didn't want to do. So the nurse, she had to have a talk with Shell. I think she talked to Shell and Pig, and she was a little burnt up with me that I guess I'm too aggressive, or I'm making Bridget do this, and they had some concerns about me. So I guess Buff is concerned about me. You got the nurse with 30 years of experience concerned about me, and so they want to know, we want to talk to Bridget herself. So they talk to Bridget, and she goes to Bridget, and she says, now, Bridget, when we pull this tube, you're going to die. And they just came out. They didn't even sugarcoat it or anything. Bridget showed no fear or anything. Now, do you understand? Now, we understand what your family, we know what they're expecting, and it would be nice that if you would survive, but we've been doing this for 30 years. And we've done cases, and yours is the most severe, and you're going to die. So what we want to do is we want to give you some drugs that are going to help ease the pain, because you're going to be struggling to breathe. And they're talking to Bridget just like this. They didn't sugarcoat anything. And do you want the such and such drugs? Bridget says no. Do you want us to stick the tube back in your mouth? Bridget said no. She said nope. And so they said, well, everyone's going to have to leave the room. I said, well, only one that can be in here is Maurice, one person. I said, well, one person's not going to be in the room. I said, her pastor's going to be in the room at the same time. So I made it that my father was there in the room. So at the same time, the church and people around, I guess they had Facebook. My sisters were Facebooking. They had friends, family, acquaintances, people that we never knew. Everybody's praying during that time. And I never had any fear whatsoever. I was so confident. It was like I already had saw it. And I was so built up with faith, and it was anything of my own. I was piggybacking off of the prayers of the saints. And so we had prayed together, and you can feel the prayers. I was so confident that she was coming out. I just wanted to hurry up. Let's get this tube out of her. So everyone's out of the room. They kick everyone out of the room. My mom and them are peeking through the window. And it was me and my father. And they said, okay, Bridget, we're about to pull it. Now, I said, she's basically telling us she's going to have to intervene when she's struggling. They're going to have to give her drugs, a palliation drug, so that she doesn't suffer while she's dying. So they go ahead and they pulled the tube. I felt real good about it. She pulled the tube, and Bridget's just breathing. She's breathing, and she's breathing. And everybody's calling on, I said, in Jesus' name, in Jesus' name. I wasn't fearful, but just in Jesus. My father's praying. He prayed for her before, he prayed for her after she got the tube put, laid hands on her, and she was just breathing on her own. And they kept on waiting for her to die. They were looking at the clock. They were waiting for her to die. They had the drugs ready to intervene because they didn't care what we said. They were going to give her drugs because they were going to overrule us anyways. So they're waiting for her to die. And she's just breathing on her own, just breathing and breathing and breathing and breathing. She just kept on breathing. And we said, thank you, Jesus. And, and my mom and them, they're looking, everybody's looking, and we said, go ahead, Bridge. Come on, hang in there, Bridge. And she's just breathing. Half hour goes by, hour goes by, 2 hours goes by. And they kept on looking, and they're confused. And you can see them whispering, they're talking like, what in the world is going on? And she had told us before, she said, Maurice, I've been doing this for 30 years. And a lot of the nurses we dealt with, they have like 20 to 30 years of experience anyways. And she told us, she said, Maurice, this is the most advanced case of breast cancer and lung cancer I've ever seen. She said, looking at her numbers, she's not going to survive. And she was shocked, like the hours would go by, and they kept on looking and looking. A day goes by. After a day goes by, they came back the next morning, and she was still living, breathing, talking, and so they moved her out of the intensive care unit, and we eventually get her home. So we got Bridget home, but at this time, Bridget has a catheter in her, and she's extremely, extremely weak. Like, I mean, she couldn't do anything for herself. But after that incident, I was unbeknownst to me, I didn't know she had a conversation with my son in the hospital. So he never told us. This is all afterwards. So she has, not verbatim, but she has some sort of conversation with him saying, asking him, don't be afraid, are you afraid, or whatever. She waited until we were all out of the room, and it was just her and him. And he told us, he's not afraid, and he wants her to get better. And she says, are you going to be afraid, or something about I want to go to sleep? And if I go to sleep? I said, what does she mean by going to sleep? And I believe she was basically, and he knew what she was talking about, if she died, she was using sleep because I don't think she wanted to scare him. And I'm pretty certain when she was in that hospital, Bridget was ready to go home. I mean, she just had a peace to herself. She was ready to go home. She was actually shocked that she survived because I remember she kept on saying little things, like she wrote down when she still had the tube before it got pulled. She says, if I pass away, will it mean that my faith has failed? My father said, no, it doesn't mean. So Bridget was plotting and planning. She wanted to go home to glory. We didn't know it, but she was doing her little plotting and planning. And so what happened is the Lord blessed us as far as, he blessed us as far as giving us extra time with her. He gave us some extra time with her, and he disregarded her, her request. Because I think she wanted to go home then, because with the breast cancer and just being taken care of. Anybody that knows Bridget, she is so proud, and I knew it hurt her for her to have to be taken care of. Just for Bridget to be taken care of, that just really hurt her. And I think she was ready to go home long before we were ready to let her go. We just weren't ready to let Bridget go. And so things progressed, and the Lord gave us 2 more weeks with her. And she was never the same. She was never the same as far as, she understood things. Her and my mom would pray together, and she was getting her prayer, and she was speaking in tongues, and she missed the kids. And I had never seen Bridget cry all the years I've known her. And she was like me. She was crying like crazy when you would mention like certain people. I remember during the graduation or something, and I believe a couple of the sisters came by, and she was crying like crazy. And after they left, she was crying like crazy. Never seen her cry before. And so, I know I was looking through her phone the other day, and it was during a period, she was responding to some texts, and she didn't at a certain period of time, she was so fatigued and so advanced into the cancer that she really couldn't respond to everyone, as far as getting back to you all as far as texts are concerned. So, so there is a part two to this. Just massively, it'd be hard to tell everything. So during that period of time, we're prayerful. I'm thankful for the people that supported her financially, especially number one, the prayers. And, the people, the prayers, we definitely felt the prayers throughout that whole ordeal. We felt the prayers of the saints. I want to thank you all for that, because it was only through, with the prayer of the saints that we were able to, get through this ordeal. So I guess the next part two is I'm going to go with, and then part two would be with Bridget's passing, because of time constraints and because of how long, how much of the story goes on. I'll have to leave that for, for next time. But I haven't been able to respond to people that have sent me cards, and people that have given me words of encouragement. I want to thank you all, and thank you all for the prayers. And I guess I'll finish it up next time. We'll start from, we'll start from her passing, and we'll go from there, because there's more of the story to tell and about God's abundant grace. But thank you for being patient. And
praise the Lord. Thank everyone for their patience. We were actually really wanting to hear part two, but we know we have a part two of our service that we have to get into. But we appreciate Brother Maurice's openness and everything to be able to come and to share. And I know there's the part two, and there's probably going to be a part three, because there's some parts even in the hospital before passing, and then her passing, transitioning into heaven. Then there's some really important parts that he would like to share about that. And it's been a amazing journey of God's grace in our family, a really amazing grace that God has bestowed upon us. We miss her dearly, but she left such a great testimony of faith and perseverance in her life. Was just such, the years that she's dedicated herself as a teacher at Redemption Christian Academy. And we miss her dearly, but God's grace is sufficient.